The Oregon autumn air, crisp and smelling of pine and damp earth, offered little comfort on October 17th, 2023. For Sarah Jenkins, a 4-year-old, with a fragile build and anxiety etched deep into her wide green eyes, it was the prelude to a nightmare. Her best friend, Jessica Holloway, a 4-year-old artist with a slender frame, auburn hair often tied back, and a satchel that seemed permanently attached to her side, was gone. Jessica, who found solace and inspiration in nature, had driven her sensible sedan, a car that was as much a part of her bohemian charm as her layered sweaters and faint scattering of freckles, towards the vast, imposing Blackwood Forest. She'd spoken of capturing the ethereal light filtering through the ancient firs, of finding a quiet spot to sketch the gnarled roots and moss-covered stones that spoke of a history far older than the university town they'd left behind. Sarah had waved goodbye from their small apartment, a pang of unease quickly dismissed as Jessica's usual artistic wanderlust. Hours bled into each other, the setting sun casting long, unsettling shadows across their living room. Jessica's phone went straight to voicemail. A faint scattering of freckles across her nose, usually a point of light on her face, seemed to mock Sarah's growing dread. The comfortable silence of their shared space curdled into a suffocating emptiness. Sheriff Brody Ashton, a man in his late 40s, his burly frame betraying years of dedicated service and a slight limp from an old hunting accident, arrived on the scene. His tired, deep-set blue eyes, accustomed to the quiet dramas of Blackwood Creek, now held a grim focus. He'd seen despair before, but Jessica Holloway was young, vibrant, her potential a stark contrast to the creeping dread that the forest seemed to breed. He spoke with Sarah, his voice a low rumble, trying to glean any detail, any nuance that might point towards Jessica's whereabouts. Sarah, clutching a worn photograph of Jessica, her voice a trembling whisper, recounted Jessica's fascination with the forest, her desire to escape the city's noise, her ongoing quest to capture the essence of the landscapes she found so captivating. Sheriff Ashton ordered a preliminary search, the flashing lights of his patrol car, a small, inadequate beacon against the encroaching twilight. The Blackwood Forest, a place of immense beauty and deep shadows, began to reveal its secrets, or perhaps its capacity for concealment. Jessica's car was found abandoned 2 days later, parked precariously on a seldom-used logging road deep within the forest's embrace. The driver's side door was ajar. Her leather satchel, usually filled with sketch pads and charcoal pencils, was gone, as if the forest itself had simply swallowed her, leaving only an empty vehicle as a testament to her passage. The initial search parties, a mix of local law enforcement and concerned volunteers, fanned out across the dense undergrowth, their calls for Jessica echoing unanswered through the towering trees. Every snapped twig, every rustle of leaves, sent a jolt of fear through the searchers and the anxious community waiting back in town. The vastness of the forest, once an inspiration for Jessica, now represented an insurmountable obstacle. Sheriff Ashton, despite his weary demeanor, pushed his deputies, coordinating with state rangers, expanding the search grid, his weathered face a mask of grim determination. He knew the terrain, knew its unforgiving nature, and the chilling possibility that Jessica might have met with foul play, or worse, simply vanished into the impenetrable wilderness, weighed heavily on his conscience. He saw the case not just as a duty, but as a personal challenge, a stain on his otherwise peaceful jurisdiction, a ghost he was determined to exorcise. The quiet quest for artistic inspiration had taken a terrifying turn, and the shadows of Blackwood Forest were beginning to deepen with unspoken questions as the tangible world gave way to a chilling mystery. The initial days of the investigation unfolded with a frantic, almost desperate energy. Sheriff Brody Ashton, a man whose life had been defined by the quiet order of Blackwood Creek, found himself confronting a chaos that eluded easy categorization. He directed search parties through the labyrinthine logging roads and dense undergrowth of Blackwood Forest, the same paths Jessica Holloway might have taken in her quest for artistic inspiration. The forest, vast and indifferent, offered no easy answers. Her abandoned car, A metallic intrusion in the natural landscape became the epicenter of their efforts. The driver's side door ajar, the keys nowhere to be found, a chilling tableau that spoke of an abrupt departure, or perhaps an unwelcome intrusion. Inside the vehicle, forensics found nothing immediately suspicious. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no obvious indications of foul play. It was as if Jessica had simply stepped out for a moment and never returned. This lack of evidence, however, was precisely what gnawed at Ashton. The absence of clues was, in itself, a clue to something deeply unsettling. He revisited Sarah Jenkins, Jessica's roommate, a young woman whose petite frame seemed to shrink further with each passing hour, her wide green eyes perpetually rimmed with unshed tears. Sarah, clinging to a worn photograph of Jessica, recounted Jessica's recent conversations. Jessica had been excited about her move to Oregon, eager to immerse herself in the raw, untamed beauty of the Pacific Northwest. She spoke of Blackwood Forest with a reverence that Sarah now recalled with a sickening dread. Jessica had mentioned wanting to find a secluded spot, a place where she could feel truly alone with her art, away from the constant hum of civilization, a place where the true spirit of the forest could inspire her. She had talked about the unique quality of light in the late autumn, the way it filtered through the dense canopy, creating an almost mystical atmosphere. Sarah confessed her guilt, a crushing weight that had settled upon her since Jessica's disappearance. Had she missed something? A subtle change in Jessica's demeanor, a veiled warning in her words. Jessica, with her quiet determination and thoughtful nature, had always seemed so self-possessed. But Sarah now wondered if there was a vulnerability beneath the surface, a hidden fear that had led her into the woods. Ashton listened intently, his tired blue eyes fixed on Sarah, trying to coax any detail, any fragment of memory that might shed light on Jessica's final hours. He knew the importance of the personal connection. The missing person wasn't just a case file, but a young woman with dreams, with a life that had been inexplicably interrupted. Her professors at art school had noted her raw talent, her unique vision. Her move to Oregon was meant to be the beginning of her professional career, a chance to build a meaningful life away from the city's noise. The sheer potential that was lost was a somber undertone to the investigation. Ashton, a lifelong resident of Blackwood Creek, understood the local landscape and its inhabitants intimately. He knew that in these remote areas, secrets could be buried as deep as the ancient roots of the forest itself. He initiated more extensive grid searches, employing specialized K-9 units and coordinating with state forestry officials. He interviewed local loggers, hikers, anyone who might have been in the vicinity of the logging roads near where Jessica's car was found. Most offered little more than concerned platitudes or accounts of seeing nothing unusual. But one name kept surfacing in hushed tones among the local rangers and longtime residents: Silas Croft, known locally as the Hermit of Blackwood. Croft was a phantom figure, a man who had allegedly retreated into the deepest parts of the forest decades ago, seeking solitude and escaping an unknown past. He was known to be fiercely private, distrustful of outsiders, and rarely seen. Rumors swirled about him, painting him as either a harmless eccentric or a man with something to hide. Ashton was skeptical but pragmatic. He couldn't afford to dismiss any potential witness, however elusive. The Hermit of Blackwood, if he possessed any knowledge, was a critical, albeit frustratingly difficult piece of the puzzle. The mention of Silas Croft, the Hermit of Blackwood, added a new, unsettling dimension to the investigation. Sheriff Brody Ashton, a man grounded in procedure and tangible evidence, found himself pursuing a ghost. Croft was a local legend, a recluse rumored to have retreated into the deepest, most inaccessible parts of the forest decades ago, seeking an existence far removed from human contact. Little was known of his past, fueling local speculation and a certain degree of fear. He subsisted off the land, a phantom figure rarely seen. His presence felt more through the whispers and cautionary tales of the townsfolk than through any verifiable interaction. Ashton dispatched a deputy, a seasoned officer named Miller, known for his patience and ability to navigate the tricky social dynamics of their rural community. To try and locate Croft, Miller, a man in his late 30s with a quiet demeanor and a knack for gaining trust, spent days trekking through the less traveled areas of Blackwood Forest, following faint trails and rumored landmarks. He eventually found Croft's crude dwelling, a small, weathered cabin hidden deep within a thicket of ancient cedars, smoke curling faintly from its makeshift chimney. Croft, when approached, was exactly as the legends described: gaunt, with a long, unkempt gray beard and matted gray hair that reached his shoulders. His deep-set, piercing eyes, weathered and ancient, seemed to hold the secrets of the woods. He wore patched, earth-toned work clothes, his skin leathery and sun-weathered. He carried a hand-carved walking stick and smelled faintly of wood smoke and damp earth. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of silence broken only by the rustling leaves and distant birdsong, Croft spoke. His voice was a low rasp, like dry leaves skittering across stone. He admitted to being near the logging roads a few days before Jessica's car was discovered, seeking foraged mushrooms. He spoke vaguely of seeing a car similar to Jessica's parked where it was found. He claimed to have seen no one, heard nothing unusual, and had then turned back deeper into the woods, wanting no part of human affairs. But there was a flicker in his piercing eyes, a subtle tension in his leathery skin that suggested he knew more, or perhaps had seen more than he was willing to admit. His fear of exposure, of being drawn into the legal system, or the community's morbid curiosity, was palpable. He saw the investigation as an unwelcome entanglement, a threat to his carefully constructed solitude. He reiterated his desire to be left alone, turning his back on Miller and disappearing into the dense forest as if he were a spirit of the woods itself. Miller, understanding that pushing further would be futile and potentially dangerous, retreated, leaving Croft to his isolation. He reported his encounter to Sheriff Ashton, relaying Croft's cryptic words and the palpable sense of unsaid information. Ashton, though frustrated by the hermit's evasiveness, now had a new thread to pull. Croft's sighting, however oblique, confirmed that Jessica's car had been there and that someone or something had been in the vicinity. The forest, it seemed, held its secrets tightly, guarded by its oldest, most enigmatic inhabitant. Miller, sensing Croft's inherent distrust, approached slowly, offering no threat, explaining his purpose with measured calm. He spoke of Jessica Holloway, of her disappearance, of the search that was underway. Croft remained silent for a long time, his gaze fixed on some unseen point beyond Miller's shoulder, his expression unreadable. He seemed to regard the outside world, and by extension, law enforcement, with a profound suspicion. He valued his privacy above all else, and the intrusion was clearly unwelcome. Miller pressed gently, explaining that Croft might have seen something, anything, on the logging roads near where Jessica's car was found. He spoke of Jessica's desperate family, of the community's anxiety,